The 2021-2022 school year marks the 50th anniversary of Title IX. This landmark legislation led to a national movement that now provides opportunities for over 140,000 female student athletes in Illinois. The opportunities for today's athletes were built on the perseverance of those athletes, coaches, administrators, and officials who came before. In this episode of Leaders and Legends, IHSA staff explores one of those experiences. Celebrating the 50th anniversary of Title IX, the IHSA presents Leaders and Legends.
Today, we're continuing our Leaders and Legends series as we continue to tell the story and share our experiences about Title IX. Joining me today is Melissa Isaacson, a journalist and author and a faculty member of Northwestern's Medill School of Journalism. So starting today, Melissa, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been a sports writer for much of my career. I consider myself a journalist. I was at the Chicago Tribune for 20 years. I was at ESPN. I covered the Chicago Bulls for the Tribune. I covered the Chicago Bears. I was a columnist. I was the first woman to do all those things. And now I teach journalism, which is really fun and kind of full circle for me. But it really did all start with my Title IX experience, as you call it, and how that influenced me and how my high school experience influenced me.
So Title IX legislation happened right in 1972. Can you tell us maybe kind of where you were at in life when that legislation passed?
Yeah, I mean, I was, 11, 12 years old, and I can't say for sure that, I remember that day that President Nixon signed that into law. It wasn't something that we were all super conscious of, but we were certainly very conscious of the effects that it had immediately on our lives. And for me, that meant being able to play basketball in junior high. But not quite, because it was for seventh and eighth graders, and I was a sixth grader. But I was very, very excited about it. So excited that I remember watching through the crack of the gym doors, as they tried out and begging the coach to let me try out, which she didn't. But just, I was very discouraged about that. I could barely wait for a year to do it because we had no team, experiences to that point. You went out and played with the boys in the neighborhood, your brothers, you kind of chased after them. We eventually had softball when I was a preteen, a teenager. But aside from that, it was all kind of waiting for Title IX to make that change for us in high school. And that was a huge, huge thing.
So you won the state championship in 1979, but let's just talk about kind of entering high school before we get to that state championship experience. We started basketball here at the IHSA in 1977, and when you got into high school, we now have 18 sports for girls, 7 non-athletic activities. What was really offered? Were things changing? Did you have access to gyms and transportation and uniforms, or, just tell us kind of what that was like.
The year before I entered Niles West, they had just started the basketball program. When I got there in the fall of 1975, we had a varsity team and a junior varsity team. We shared the same uniforms. Most of the girls' teams all wore the same uniform. And we, quite frankly, were not allowed to practice or play in the contest gym, which we all refer to as the boys' gym. It was the regulation court. And so, we didn't know any better, but here we were playing in a dance studio, playing in the girls' gym, we called it, which was not a regulation court. If you ran too fast after a layup, you'd run into the wall. We finally had tryouts in that gym, and it was a huge moment. We could barely, sort of run up and down the regulation court. And all we wanted was like that opportunity, and all we wanted was the chance to have a real uniform. That was such a thrill just to have, and it didn't say Niles West, it didn't say the school name yet, it just had the little teeny tiny number. But, I tell my students it was as if it had USA across the chest. By the time we got, the name of our school, the idea that we were representing our school and representing our classmates in our town was so foreign and so incredible and such an honor and such a big deal to step on that court and to wear, Niles West colors was just an amazing kind of honor that we had not ever experienced before.
So leading up to 1979, when you win the state championship, was your team successful, or was it something that you were kind of building a little bit of momentum?
Yeah, I mean, had good athletes on our team, but we were a little ragtag, like a lot of girls' teams were. We were just getting our first real coaching. Our coaches, like ours, Arlene Mulder, was learning the game along with us, even though she had played. She had never coached five to a side. She had played six girl basketball. So we were learning, and with the help of the boys coach Billy Schnurr at our school, we started learning things that we had no idea, the strategies behind what they were doing, full court presses, all the different kinds of defenses, motion offense. Like that was just completely foreign. And I said, it was as if the magician had kind of tipped the hat and we got to see the tricks. And it was like, just this amazing thing to practice against boys, to be walked through plays and to be shown the game. We got very quickly better, but mostly what we did was work so hard because it was so fun to be playing. The joy of it was so amazing. We wanted to be pushed. It was the first time in our lives we had been pushed to that degree physically, past what we thought our limitations were. So we really ate it up and we ran extra laps and we came at 4 in the morning to play. And all of it was we just soaked it up. And so we made the super sectionals my sophomore and junior year, which was 77, and then the next season, before we kind of got over the hump and got to the Elite Eight and got to Champaign and then played Jackie Joyner's East St. Louis team, as you said.
So tell us a little bit about that. So kind of goes down in history here at IHSA as maybe one of the best state championships of all time in 1979, playing East St. Louis, Jackie Joyner Curso. You went on to write a book about the experience. It made such an impact, I would say, in your own life. So tell us about that. Tell us about the book. Tell us about that game.
I mean, I think any of us would be able to replay much of that experience for you. It was that vivid in our minds and in our memories. WGN had just started as a superstation the year before. So this tournament was broadcast all over the country. And you're talking about kids who would watch the boys every year on WGN, the kind of grainy telecasts. And so now we're on national television. We're playing against this unbelievably gifted team. If you watch it now, I really would argue that it was a very high level. I wouldn't, stand here and say we could have beaten teams now. I mean, we didn't have the same kind of strength. We didn't have the same size as teams do now, but we were really good. It was a great game. It was a great product. And I remember very vividly watching with all of my teammates, kind of turning around and watching the layup line, East St. Louis. And Jackie went up, and she was this little 16-year-old junior at the time. And we knew she was a talented track athlete, but we didn't know the extent. We certainly didn't know she was going to the Olympics and going to be probably the best female athlete of our entire generation. She went up to tip a layup over the rim to tip. We had never seen a girl do that, and our mouths were just agape, like we couldn't believe it. So, was I right then saying like this is a book? Like, of course not. But at the same time, I think we were all really acutely aware that this was something really special, and that it was a story, and that we needed to tell it in some way. And so, on the occasion of our 25th anniversary, we all gathered for a reunion, and we were watching highlights from that WGN telecast, and we were all struck by how special it was, even maybe more so. And so it became, again, sort of one of my teammates just turned to me, Connie Erickson, who was the star of our team, and said, like, Missy, you got to tell this story. You got to tell our story. And I was thrilled to do it. And it was an honor to tell it. And it was a joy to tell it. And I think it holds up. I think it still holds up. There's a lot of universal themes. Some of the things that kids still go through in high school, we were going through then. Um, and my favorite part of the book is the epilogue, because it talks about what happened to us as adults and how the experience in high school 40, 50 years ago absolutely affected the kinds of women we would become. And so you could see how important that was. And I say to women and to girls now, it's not as if you didn't play sports or didn't win a state championship, you couldn't be successful. But the lessons that we all learned through team sports, thanks to Title IX, absolutely gave us a self awareness and self image and confidence that I know I didn't have before, and absolutely influenced who I would become in my job later, my career, how I'd raise my kids, the husband I would choose. It really shaped me, and I'm forever grateful for it.
You brought up a really good point when you talked about the boys basketball coach helping your girls basketball coach when you were in high school and the collaboration between the two teams. In these Title IX interviews, that's not always been the case. You didn't kind of see that teamwork. So I think that's very special and unique. Did they follow you all the way through the state series and support your team? And did you feel that with your high school community as well?
Yeah, I mean, and I won't sugarcoat it. Look, there was plenty of male coaches who just didn't have quite the same awareness of what and how important this was. And so we had Arlene Mulder, our coach, had a fight for gym time in the early days. They were not thrilled to let us sort of elbow them out of the way to practice and to play. So Billy Schnurr was a hero. He's a hero in the book, and he's a hero to me because he did uh, help teach Arlene how to coach. He helped, Mrs. Mulder learn the game, and in return, she helped him. He would later talk about the motivational skills and the amazing abilities to do things that coaches weren't doing then. When I later coached the Bulls, Phil Jackson was doing things that Arlene Mulder did 15, 20 years before that. So I give her an enormous amount of credit for that. I give him a lot of credit. But the boys did help us rally the rest of the school. Mostly it was a group of, I call gym rats, who weren't varsity athletes. They were just boys who liked playing basketball. And they would sneak into the gym with us at 4:30 in the morning. Nobody knew that. And scrimmage with us, and we would get knocked down and our noses bloodied and elbowed in the head. And um, I think we earned their respect. They gained ours. And in the process, they helped rally the school around us. So we went from not being allowed in the gym to 4 years later in that same gym having standing room only crowds. It's such a transformation.
So if somebody's watching today and they want to read the epilogue or they want to hear more about your story, how can they access that book? Where can they get that at?
Yeah, I mean, you could find the excerpts of the book and the prologue on my website, which is melissaisaacson.com. Agate Publishing published the book. You can certainly buy it on Amazon. There are excerpts in various places on Amazon as well. But I think if you do read the prologue, which kind of sets it up at that the night of the 25th reunion, I think you'll be hooked. And I think, kids today especially might be really surprised. I'm One of the most gratifying things about this whole experience is that um, Glenbrook North High School, which is where I live and my kids attended, I've used the book in their curriculum. It's required reading for freshmen right now, and other schools have picked it up in various other courses, St. Ignatius and Niles West and Libertyville and New Trier, and so it would be my dream for other schools to use this book because I think it's a real vehicle to teach kids about gender equity and to tell a story that's so important to be told.
So you're also a faculty member. Tell me, what's the message that you give to your current students about Title IX? How do you continue to educate them?
Yeah, I think my students, and I teach sports writing classes, and we always spend some time on Title IX. And this year, the 50th anniversary has allowed me to expand that even more and talk about gender equity issues. And they've really embraced it. But, if you would say to most students on college campuses today, when you think of Title IX, when you hear Title IX, what do you think of? They almost certainly a great majority of them would say the Office of Sexual Misconduct, Sexual Harassment. They would not think about the origins of the law, of the very, very basic rights that it gave girls in educational activities to participate equally with boys. It's so crazy because, again, it's I'm not that old. I'm old, but I'm not that old. I always say that to students. It's like, look at me. I'm your mom's age, and we didn't have uniforms, and we weren't allowed to play sports when we were little kids, and we didn't have access to all the very, very basic life skills that little boys got when they're 5 playing t-ball. And they're really surprised. So I want them to embrace that history, to at least be aware of sort of where they came from, and not just the women, but the men as well, to understand and appreciate our history as women and how far we have to go. And that's the other emphasis, is how very far we still have to go. That with everything we've achieved, the compliance level isn't good, isn't where it should be. The participation levels aren't where it should be. There are not enough women coaching girls. So I like to, bring that to them as well.
So that was my closing question, and you kind of already answered it. But if there's anything else that you want to expand on, we have come so far in the last 50 years. And I think about what's offered here today at the IHSA for females: 18 sports, 7 non-athletic activities. So we have come a long ways. But what is the future? What do you want to really see next, for the future generation?
Yeah, I mean, and for sure, it's a moment of celebration. There's no question. We should all pause and realize how lucky we are, and it is a moment to reflect on how wonderful Title IX was. I got to talk to Birch Bai a couple years ago to interview him for the book, and he was wonderful. And pioneers like Christine Grant, who is the athletic director at Iowa, and all kinds of people who played a huge part in it. And I think that while they were, again, proud and pleased with what we've done, they all agree that the next several years, hopefully it doesn't take 50, um, to further the rights of women to get 100%, if not 100% close to that compliance. This is a law that's one of the few, if only, laws in the country that people could say, well, we're trying to comply. We're not, but we're kind of trying. That's not good enough. And girls' participation rates are down from where they were percentage wise back in the early 70s, back in 72. So we need to be acutely aware of that. We need to encourage more girls to go into coaching. But how do you do that? You get more women into coaching and administration, athletic directors, because then they've got examples they can see that look like them and follow. Until we do all of that, I think, we can only sort of talk about it. But let's just hope we carry the momentum of the 50th anniversary forward. And I think it's a great thing you guys are doing, and I'm really pleased to be part of that.
Well, as we conclude today, I'm going to ask you if you have any other final thoughts as we continue to celebrate Title IX here at the IHSA, celebrating our leaders and our legends. And Melissa, what can you leave us with as we conclude this final session here of our celebration?
I think whatever you did in high school or are doing in high school, whether it's sports, whether it's any other activity, just know how it really does stay with you. The skills you learn, the friendships you make, the lessons that you pick up along the way, the relationships with your coaches and teammates, all of that will carry with you. It will stay with you for many, many years. You'd be surprised. Here I am. I'm 60 years old, and I still remember so much of that experience, and it's so much a part of who I am. It's so much inside of me, and it's so special. And it's not just because we won the state championship. It's because we had the chance to play for it, and it's the celebration and like I said, the sheer joy. I wish the kids would feel that same joy that we did just stepping on that court. I guess that's sort of the lasting, wish I have for kids, for boys and for girls.
Well, thanks for being a champion of the IHSA and high school sports and all that you do to empower women. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.